Hey everyone. So you might remember or have seen where I made this treasure box for my little ocean journal. And basically, well, it has things in it right now, but it will fit right inside, folds over, and it has a magnetic closure. And someone asked, how did I make that? Where the lid was a continuous thing. It didn't look like I had, manufactured or, created the fold. It was all one piece. What happened with that box, it just happened to be the perfect size for the book I was making. So I took another box to create one for a different book I was making that was not the same size. And I have determined that while it's very, very possible just, to redo the sides, and where their creases are, you reinforce them with tape, make your own creases. Like I said, reinforce where there was creases that you didn't want to make your own box. And I did this out of, I don't even remember what kind of box, probably a cereal box or something like that. But when it all folds up, it will look like a normal box, and I'll have a closure here. And the inside I will cover with probably scrapbook paper, because this is a pretty sturdy box. Plus, with the decoupage and painting and things that I did, it's pretty sturdy. So I think scrapbook paper, probably a heavier kind, will do just fine. But to show you how to create your own box, much easier than creating a whole box, my first tip would be to try to find a box that's compatible with what you're wanting. For instance, my next journal is going to be this. So I went about, I have so many boxes. Most people do. If you eat groceries, buy groceries, whatever, you have boxes. And so I found a box that was as wide as I was wanting. That's the main thing. Find your width. And this one is the width and height. And what I did to make sure was I just put, before I broke it apart, I shouldn't have done that first, but before I broke it apart, I just slipped in my journal to make sure it would fit. And it's perfect. Now, you don't want it real close to your height if you're going to have a lot of tabs and things coming out the end, because this wouldn't work. I guess the most important thing isn't the width. You want the width and the height. So let me grab another box and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so I have a box filled with empty boxes that are already broken down. This one is exactly the right size, I think. My height, plenty of room on both ends. Here's the creases. So my height's going to be good. So once we have our height and our width of the box, like I say, this one's going to be perfect with room to grow and tags to come out the top, out the side. Once we have that, we have everything we need, because we can adjust the height if it's too wide. If it's too thin, that's going to be a little more difficult. I would suggest getting one that's too wide. So short piece is going to be our bottom. And knowing that, and we know that we want our lid to be like this. So let's go ahead and cut off these flaps. All right. So there's our flap. Now, because I don't really think I need a box this deep, I can't imagine that I'll add that much to it. If I thought I was, it would be easy enough to cut another piece of cardboard and attach it to this to build it up. I don't think I want mine that thick, so I'm going to trim mine down. I'm going to make my spine, if you will, of my box to be a little bit smaller. And I think I want it, right now I think it's about probably 3 inches. Yeah, 3 inches. And I think I want to make it about 2 inches thick. So I'm just going to mark 2 inches. I like to leave it on the lid, so I'm going to go 2 inches from my lid, the crease. and just make a little mark. Okay, and then I'm just going to cut straight down, hopefully straight, and I'm going to leave these ends, so I'll just cut that whole piece right down through there. All right, I'll just finish the bottom with my scissors. And then this is what we will have. I'm going to fold up this side and match it like so. So that's going to be my spine. It'll be this wide. Now we need to fix the front part because your flap will be too long. And we know that it can't be any longer than 2 inches. If you want your flap to meet the bottom of your box, then make it 2 inches. If you want it to be a little short of the bottom of your box, you know, however long you want it, but you cannot make it more than 2 inches or it's going to be too tall. And another thing to keep in mind when you're cutting this down is what kind of a closure are you going to use? Is it need to meet exactly? You know, are you going to do like a hook and latch, or do you want something like a magnetic closure where it needs to come over the bottom just slightly? Just some things to keep in mind when you're trying to determine how long you want your front lip. Okay, so we have our front lip cut, and we're going to attach the lid to our base. And I've made several of these boxes. I've found the best way and the quickest way to do it is simply with hot glue. I'll run a generous amount down my spine, then I will lay my lid right up to the edge of the bottom of the box, the crease of the box. And another thing I like to do is use painter's tape. I use painter's tape only because that's what I had, but I would think any kind of tape would work just fine. The purpose of it is once I put that tape on there, and then I take my bone folder and I smooth it down. I think that that makes the outside of your box for when you're decorating. I think it kind of camouflages that fold, that seam where it looks a little smoother. So I'm going to do the same thing on the inside. I'm going to run my painter's tape down the crease where they meet, and same thing, take my bone folder and smooth out that ridge. Okay, so now we're going to build up the front lip of our box. And what you want to make sure is how wide is your spine, because you need, however much you're going to build up that lip is going to be the same height as your spine. That will ensure that your box is going to be square. Your lid will lay flat. So those flaps that I'm showing you right there, I want to make sure that when I cut the piece for the front of my box, it is not only the length of the front of my box, but long enough that I can fold each end to create a tab to secure to the sides of my box. Okay, so I'm just going to use my paper trimmer to cut. I believe my spine was 1 3/4 inches, 2 inches, something like that. So I just used my paper trimmer to cut a piece that size. I'm making sure that when I put it to the front of my box, I have enough room on each end to create a small tab, and I do. So now I'm just gonna, because I've used a strip off of another box that had different folds, as you can see, so I'm just using the painter's tape to strengthen those folds. And I'm just going the opposite way of that fold so that it gives it, seems like it gives it strength when I do that. So, okay, now we're going to glue it to the front using the hot glue again this time. Just going to run it down this little thin piece because I'm going to put my solid piece on the outside. And I'm going to center this where I have about as much flap on each end poking out. And then I'm just going to bend that up just like that. That will be my inside flap. And it works perfect because I can see the line that it needs to be on, of course. So I'm going to do that on the bottom too. It's neat enough to attach, just like so. And that's going to be perfect. Love it. Okay. Now I'm just going to do the same with my painter's tape, run it down along those edges where I've joined the boxes, or where I've joined the two pieces, and smooth it with my bone folder to give it a better edge. And our box is done. Now we can go about decorating and all the things, which last time what I done on this first box is while it was still flat, I covered the whole thing with my book page. And that worked out good, except that, of course, you know, the folds, I was worried whenever I went to fold it. And I was real careful. I just did it gently, you know, giving the fibers time to move up and all. But I was worried that it would crack. So I think what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to go ahead and cover the inside first, then fold up and glue my box, and then collage the outside. And how I did the inside, I was worried I wouldn't be able to find a piece of paper that I would have to piece it all together, which I'm sure would look fine as well. But thankfully, I have Italian Florentine paper, which comes in a big, I think it's like 20 by 24, something like that, 20 by 28. So I just laid it down. This, of course, is the offcut piece from the other box. I just laid it over my box, glued it down, and then cut off what I didn't need. And that worked out great. So I ended up with one piece, and then just shaped my box, you know, on the seams and such. So I'm going to go do that part now. And then when I come back, we'll put on the finishing touches. Okay, so here's my box. I've got it covered with the Florentine paper. Isn't that cool? So I'm going to go ahead and glue it up. I wanted to mention that on the Florentine paper, I used Mod Podge to glue it down. And I had to cut a piece for this corner over here to fix this little hole. And please know that when you take your box apart, if you're, like I say, the best thing is to find a box that you don't have to modify. You just cut the flaps off to make your lid correct. The flaps you cut off, you're going to put on the inside to build these back up to meet your top. If you have to adjust the spine like I did, just take note if there's any areas that need an extra piece like this, you know, because sometimes when we take our boxes apart, this one's good on this side, it's just over here. So I made a little piece that I'll put in here, and it will fix that. But you may have to add different pieces to wherever, depending on how your box is made. I forgot to turn on my glue gun, so while that's heating up, I'm going to go ahead and glue some pieces onto the outside. Also, if you're going to cover your box with something that might show this blue tape through, you'll want to probably cover the inside first with like gesso or, you know, even acrylic paint, white acrylic paint, so that when you cover, nothing shows through. I had something that was dark enough, it didn't matter. But, I mean, also, and I did do this on one of them, you can also just paint the whole thing. There's no, you don't need to cover it with anything. But while that's heating up, on some of the areas that are not going to go on a bend, and that's why I don't want to cover the entire outside until I'm ready to glue it. I want to make sure I glue on the folds this time so that I don't have to stress my paper by bending after it's dry. So I'm just going to go ahead right now while I'm waiting on the glue gun and glue some pieces to the outside that don't have a fold. And what I'm using is the same on the other box and some of this rag paper. Isn't this beautiful? Look at the offset on that. Looks so grungy, and I love that. The offset is rag paper. Over time, the letters that they use to stamp this with kind of bleed. So they call that offsetting, and it gives it this beautiful grungy look. So I have all these rag papers in different shades of grunge, of, you know, of aging, and I'm just going to cover my whole box with that. Also, if you're interested, I do have, well, I will be having sets of rag paper packs in my Etsy shop. So I'm not cutting these. I'm just tearing them because I like the rough edges. And I'm using Oohoo glue stick to glue them down. I've used a lot of this. I'm not stingy with it because I want it to hold. However, I am also going to add a layer of Mod Podge to seal it all because, you know, I think the wear and tear of treasure box, you know, of the box itself, just from setting and being moved and whatever, might, you know, eventually wear on this. I don't know. It's rag paper, so it's very sturdy. However, I think it just needs, it would make me feel better to seal it. So I am going to put a seal on it too. And I'm just going to glue these down every which way. No uniform pattern to it. Should use a glue book for this part, but I didn't think I was going to be able to probably add that much before my glue gun heated up. So I'm just going to play around a little bit until that happens. It's hot enough now. So the first thing I'm going to do is glue that piece I needed to the inside. Okay. Also, if you were going to put magnets as a magnet lid before you do your outside, you probably want to go ahead and put your magnets down and before you do your inside. I'm not using a magnet on these, so I didn't have to do that. But if you want them covered, of course, if you forget like I did on one, you can always cover them later on with the same paper that's on the inside. And I'm just going to put a little clip there, make sure it holds good. And there's my box. Isn't it beautiful? Well, not yet, but it will be. So from here, while it's drying and doing its thing, I'm just going to keep covering the outside with my rag paper. When I come back, my box will be covered. Decorate the cover and put a clasp on, but it's done. I don't know if decorating the outside is actually something you want to see. I figure my main purpose of this video was to show you how to create your own box, any size that you wanted. And I think my main tips, like I said, would be try to find a box that's close, but you can always alter any box to fit the size that you need. Pretty much any box. So anyway, I'll come back and show you my completed projects. Hopefully you'll be inspired. Okay, so I'm pretty much done, I think, with the box. Some of the boxes. Okay, all that was a lie. I'm not pretty much done. I have all the gluing done. And now my work is for the outside. And I didn't intend on finishing this video until I could show you the completed boxes. But I realized as I was doing this one, that's going to take me a while. And I really wanted to post how to do the boxes. So here is the ocean box. And again, it's the little magnetic closure. And I would say with this box, the easiest thing to do is if you have a box that opens from the side, like a lot of times Pop-Tarts or, you know, something like that, it's a lot easier because all you have to do is cut the sides and glue them to the inside, you know, to give them strength. But otherwise, you don't have to modify a lot if you're lucky enough, because this box opened like this. But most boxes that are bigger open on one end or the other, which meant we had to modify a little bit. So this is another one that I've made and lined the inside with, again, the Florentine paper. And I love this one. This one I am not done with. I still have to do some touching up, but I love the way it feels. This one I decoupaged with a napkin and then painted. And this one is one of the two that I done on camera. I have not Mod Podged it yet. I have put the inside. As you can see, I haven't trimmed off the excess pieces and all the goodies. I haven't put on my closure because I'm waiting for some brads, because I want to do a closure like a hook and loop, and I don't have any brads that are long enough to go through the box, so I couldn't finish the closures on the 3 big boxes. And then here is the last one, and nothing is glued down. I can remove it though, because some of the pieces are missing. I don't know. I hope I haven't glued it to something else. But I did end up putting some washi tape on the spine of this one, just to, I don't know why, I just did. I felt like this was the first one I done, and I collaged it when the box had not been glued yet. It was completely flat. I actually like doing it that way the best. However, when you go to fold your pieces, of course you're going to wait for your pieces to dry, so when you go to fold, there's a possibility it's going to crack. And I was worried that in this spine, because it was, you know, a little iffy, I went ahead and put the washi tape on so that it would keep that nice and strong. I really think that these are so awesome, especially to put something that you love so much. Like, look at all these beautiful papers, all that wonderful edging, and it's going to live right inside this box without the thread. But, you know, there's plenty of room at the top and the side. I mean, you could add a pin in here. You could put like one of those loops on your lid, the elastic loops, and have your pin in there. You have plenty of room for it to grow, plenty of room height-wise for it to grow, and I just think that's the perfect addition to your beautiful journal. I know there were probably some things I wasn't very clear on, so please, any questions you have, please don't hesitate to put them in the comments. I promise that I will get to them. I will read them all, and I will answer you and explain to the best of my ability. Sometimes I can write it out better than I can say it. So, again, I hope this wasn't too Mod Podge for you. Hope you got some inspiration. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time, guys. Bye.